Justice becomes urgent the moment a city realizes it no longer agrees on what the good is. Welcome to another story in the series From Wonder to Power, The Journey of Thought. Today I want to explore Plato, the Republic, and justice, and how philosophy responds when ethics fragments into competing ways of life. Athens has learned how to argue, how to persuade, how to live cleverly. It has also learned how easily power detaches from virtue. After Socrates, philosophy knows that caring for the soul matters, but it no longer knows how a whole city should be organized around that care. Discipline, pleasure, austerity, ambition all claim legitimacy. The question sharpens. If individuals disagree about the good, what makes a society just? Plato enters at this point, not with advice for personal conduct alone, but with a radical proposal. Justice is not merely a legal arrangement or a balance of interests. It is a structure of order, first within the soul, then within the city that reflects it. To understand justice, Plato insists, one must build a model large enough to see. This episode begins where ethics meets politics, not how one should live privately, but how truth, power, education, and desire must be arranged if a community is to be more than organized conflict. Here, philosophy attempts its most ambitious move yet, to design justice itself. Before the agora stirs to life, Glaucon walks Athens with a restless mind. He sees power shifting with persuasion, wealth hiding behind public virtue, and justice too often serving the strong rather than the good. He wants to rule, yet he also wants rule to be just. The tension gnaws at him. The city feels like a body pulled by competing desires, lacking a center that can command without corruption. Later, in a quiet house away from the city's noise, Plato listens as Glaucon names his unease. Plato does not begin with laws or offices. He begins with the soul. Reason seeks truth. Spirit seeks honor. Appetite seeks satisfaction. Disorder arises when appetite rules and reason obeys. The city, he explains, mirrors this structure. An unjust polis is one where those who desire most govern those who understand least. To see justice clearly, Plato proposes building the city in thought, arranging its parts according to their proper functions. He describes an ideal state divided not by birth or wealth, but by capacity. Producers sustain material life. Guardians defend the city and preserve courage. Rulers, educated longest and most rigorously, govern through reason alone. No group intrudes on another's role. Justice, Plato insists, is not equal power, but harmony of function. When each part does what it is best suited to do, the whole becomes ordered and intelligible. Seen from above, the proposal is unsettling for a democratic Athens suspicious of hierarchy. Plato rejects chance, persuasion, and desire as foundations of justice. He replaces them with structure, education, and knowledge. The ideal state is not a plan for immediate reform, but a philosophical lens. It shows that political order depends on moral order, and moral order on the rule of reason. The city becomes the soul enlarged. As daylight spreads, Glaucon leaves with his ambition altered. Power now appears as responsibility earned through understanding. The city remains noisy and divided, but he carries a new measure by which to judge it. Within the household of Cephalus, an elderly arms-maker nearing the end of his life, order holds without effort. Each person knows their role. Servants tend the forge, sons manage accounts. Cephalus oversees without intrusion. There is no shouting, no rivalry, no struggle for position. What visitors notice is not equality, but balance. When disagreements arise, they pass quickly. Expectations are clear, and no one reaches for a task that does not belong to them. Cephalus feels at ease, not because life lacks difficulty, but because it is proportioned, you see. Plato draws Glaucon's attention to this quiet scene and shifts the discussion away from laws and punishment towards something deeper. Justice, he argues, is not mainly about correcting wrongs after they occur. It is about order that prevents conflict in the first place. As health in the body depends on each part performing its function without interference, justice in the soul and in the city depends on harmony among their elements. Reason must rule, spirit must support it, appetite must obey. When this inner order is secure, just action follows naturally. Later, in the gymnasium, Adimantus objects that such justice sounds passive, even restrictive. Should justice not intervene, redistribute, correct? Plato does not deny this role, but insists it is secondary. A city constantly repairing injustice is already disordered. True justice aligns function with capacity before rivalry begins. Guardians do not seek wealth, rulers do not seek honor, producers do not seek command. Injustice starts the moment one part claims a role it is not fitted to perform. Seen from above, Plato's redefinition becomes clear. Earlier views treat justice as fairness, obedience, or advantage. Plato treats it as structural harmony. Justice is not a transaction between individuals, but a condition of the whole. It is invisible when present and destructive when absent. Like musical harmony, it exists only when different elements are held in proportion. As Cephalus prepares to leave his household in the care of his sons, he feels no anxiety. Each understands his task. In the gymnasium, Adimantus watches competition turn quickly into rivalry when unchecked. The insight settles. Justice is not sameness, punishment, or compromise. It is the quiet coherence that emerges when every part of a system becomes what it ought to be, and no part seeks to rule beyond its nature. At dawn, on a modest training ground at the city's edge, Simmias finishes his exercises while most Athenians still sleep. His body is strong, but his days are divided. After physical training comes study, geometry, music, harmony, proportion. Not for display, but to train judgment and restraint. He finds the balance difficult. Power draws him, yet Plato repeats a troubling claim. Those who desire rule most eagerly are the least fit to hold it, you see. When Plato addresses the group, he offers no praise. He offers a warning. To rule, he says, is not a reward, but a burden placed on those who understand the good and therefore cannot ignore it. The philosopher does not seek power for honor, wealth, or pleasure. He accepts it from necessity. A city governed by ignorance damages everyone, and knowledge creates obligation. To see clearly is to be responsible. Simmias begins to grasp why the best rulers must be those least tempted by rule itself. Later, Glaucon objects that philosophers are poorly suited to politics. They are withdrawn, abstract, indifferent to persuasion. Plato agrees, but turns the objection around. In corrupt cities, philosophy appears useless because ambition and rhetoric are rewarded over wisdom. In a just order, the philosopher's distance from appetite becomes strength. Trained to value truth over applause, he governs by measure rather than impulse. His authority rests on insight, not manipulation. Seen from above, the reversal becomes clear. In most regimes, power flows toward those who crave it. Plato inverts the logic. The right to rule belongs to those who know the good and therefore know its cost. Education replaces inheritance. Understanding replaces persuasion. The philosopher-ruler is not a glorified tyrant, but a reluctant guardian of order, compelled to govern because leaving power to the ignorant would cause harm. As the sun climbs, Simmias sets aside his texts and turns to the tasks of the day. Rule no longer appears as triumph. It appears as service enforced by knowledge. In this vision, politics becomes an extension of ethics. Authority follows wisdom, not desire. The philosopher rules not because he wants to, but because truth demands care, and the city cannot be entrusted to those who do not see it. In a quiet classroom far from the city's noise, Theagis, a boy selected for guardian training, struggles with a geometric proof. His hands are steady, but his patience wears thin. He wants the answer quickly, the relief of completion without the strain of understanding. The instructor does not correct him outright. He asks Theagis to begin again, more slowly, attending to each step. Frustration rises, then settles. Something shifts. The lesson, Theagis realizes, is not about shapes at all, but about discipline of attention. Plato later explains to older students why this struggle matters. Education, he insists, is not the transfer of information, it is the ordering of the soul. Human beings contain different powers. Appetite seeks pleasure and comfort, spirit seeks honor and recognition, and reason seeks truth. When untrained, these powers compete, and appetite or ambition tends to rule. Education must establish hierarchy. Spirit is trained to support reason, and appetite to accept limits. Without this internal order, no law, however strict, can produce justice. Adimantus asks why music, mathematics, and physical training are arranged so carefully. Plato answers that each discipline shapes a different aspect of the soul. Music forms emotion and harmony, preventing cruelty and excess. Physical training disciplines desire and endurance. Mathematics draws the mind away from appearances toward what is stable and intelligible. Education works cumulatively. It prepares the soul to recognize the good gradually, rather than forcing insight before character is ready. A ruler educated poorly becomes dangerous. A citizen educated badly becomes unstable. Seen from above, the significance is clear. Plato's hierarchy of the soul mirrors his hierarchy of the city. As reason must rule spirit and appetite within the individual, so those trained in reason must guide the community. Education becomes the hinge between psychology and politics. Justice begins before institutions exist. It begins in formation of character. As evening comes, Theagis leaves the classroom tired but composed. Desire remains, pride still flickers, but a new habit has formed. He listens longer before acting. In Plato's vision, this is education's true power. Not obedience, but inner order. Not force, but clarity about which part of the soul should lead and why. By the end of the Republic, justice no longer looks like a rule to obey or a bargain to strike. It looks like order sustained from the inside, well. What Plato gains is coherence. Ethics, psychology, education, and politics lock into a single structure. The just city reflects the just soul. Power answers to knowledge. Education precedes law. For the first time, philosophy offers not only criticism of society, but a complete architecture for it. Justice becomes something that can be built if one is willing to be patient, severe, and selective. What is lost is trust in ordinary judgment. Plato does not believe the many can reliably recognize the good without guidance. Desire distorts, honor misleads, opinion flatters. Left alone, the city drifts. His solution replaces freedom with formation, persuasion with hierarchy. It is elegant and unsettling. This chapter marks philosophy's most ambitious claim so far, not merely to understand how people live, but to design how they should live, individually and collectively. The art of life becomes a science of order. From here on, philosophy will never escape Plato's challenge. If justice is harmony, who enforces it? If reason must rule, who decides who truly reasons? Every later political philosophy will either inherit this structure, soften it, or fight it outright. The question of justice is no longer whether it exists, it is whether humans can bear the cost of taking it seriously.